So joining me now is Fernand Amandi, MSNBC political analyst and Democratic pollster, and Lynn Nguyen, executive director of Run AAPI. So glad to have you both here, and I really wanted to get into this conversation because, Fernand, I'll start with you. Will voters remember what we're hearing from these January 6th? Because, you know, I just feel like the attention span of our fellow American people, including my own, it's brief sometimes. And so you forget by the time you go into that ballot box. What are your thoughts here?
Tiffany, they better remember, quite simply because this is the most important story in the history of the Republic. Now, I know that that sounds like a big statement, but we've never experienced what we're seeing right now, which is clear-cut evidence that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and his political party, the Republican Party, attempted to end the democracy and stage a coup to overthrow the government. But to your question, will the voters remember? You know, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. These hearings, if you will, in the minds of a lot of voters, and I know this is going to sound bizarre, but in the minds of a lot of voters, this is political theater. And the reason for that is there has been no indictments. There have been no one that has been held accountable at the highest level. So they say, oh, you know what? If it were really that bad, Donald Trump would be indicted. Donald Trump would be put in jail and the people around him. And that is blame of the Justice Department. Now, everybody says, well, the Justice Department is watching. The Attorney General Merrick Garland came out with a statement, said, we're all seeing what's going on. If they don't indict before the midterm elections, and this is not a political statement, this is based on the law and order that the January 6th committee is clearly putting on a platter for them, the voters are going to walk away saying, this is like Benghazi, but for the Democrats. This isn't real. And they're going to focus on the other issues, which are affecting them in a more visceral way, despite the fact that this is the most important and disturbing incident that's ever happened in the 246 years of the American constitutional republic.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point, Fernand. And Lynn, this constant storyline of, you know, inflation, and people are feeling it at the grocery store. So it is challenging when, you know, come November, when it's time to cast a ballot. I just wonder if people understand how serious this is. The people watching this program right now are obviously into politics and follow things, but it's our family members, our friends, our cousins, you know, the distant people who might not wake up reading 8 papers every morning. How are those folks going to show up and show out this November? What are your thoughts?
You know, I think it's a very good question, Tiffany, and I think it's going to vary deeply depending on where you are. I mean, as a campaigner, as someone who knocks on doors, as someone who makes these calls to voters, we have to connect these dots every single week. You know, people tend to forget, and you're right, Tiffany, every single news cycle, it is something major. Things are happening all the time. You know, we look at this polling and we're listening to what folks are telling us. I mean, top issues right now, you're right, it is the economy, it is jobs, it's taxes, you know, and in this moment, I really don't think people kind of tend to see this adversarial, you know, cultural war stuff to be a big ticket issue, but it's the nuts and bolts of everyday living, you know, and we're also living in the lingering days of pandemic, the associated economic recession. You know, there's just so much happening that my concern for November is making this connection for voters every single day, because people will forget. They will.
Yeah. They will forget. And I think, Fernand, the point you were making, you know, if we see, it was like the Mueller report, you know, that was going to be the big reveal. And then, you know, I think people thought Donald Trump was going to get perp walked right out the White House. And not a lot really came from that. And so if these hearings happen and then the DOJ doesn't pursue aggressively, I know they're putting a lot of the Proud Boys and the rank and file folks. But, you know, last segment, Lucy Caldwell made the great point. What about the Josh Hawleys of the world? You know, what about members of Congress who were escorting these insurrectionists on Capitol Hill? I want to show a poll that you actually sent me this week. Thank you for texting me this poll. It frightened me, but it was a really good point. How many people think that America is in danger of no longer being a democracy? I think that should frighten everyone as we go into the polls this November. How do Democrats make that point to the voting electorate?
Well, part of the findings of those polls is that was amongst Republicans and Democrats, Tiffany, in saying that they don't think a democracy is likely to withstand in the United States. Look, I'm also upset about rising gas prices. I'm also upset about prices rising. But I also know that it's Vladimir Putin's fault that gas prices are rising and the supply chain issues that continue to bedevil around the pandemic as we get back to normal are impacting that. But the fundamental truth is, Tiffany, if you think the economy is tight now, if you think prices are a problem now, if you think gas is a problem now, wait till you see what it's like in a totalitarian, fascist, authoritarian government, because you ain't seen nothing yet. And I say that as someone who comes from a Cuban family who go to Cuba now, ask me about gas prices and the economy over there, go to Venezuela, go to Russia. It's a really different situation. But until those issues are put forth, Tiffany, to the American people and are explained and contextualized, they're not going to understand. And that's why I hold Merrick Garland, the Attorney General and the Justice Department responsible. If they do not bring these indictments on what is crystal clear smoking gun evidence, it will be an act of dereliction of duty by the Attorney General before the midterms, so that the voters can see that not only is this real, this has criminal accountability, and they can make that judgment and decision when they go vote in November.